One policy decision. A single line of text in a trade document. But from that one decision, waves of change moved through global markets for years. This is the story of tariffs. More specifically, the tariffs enacted during the Trump administration. It is a story about taxes on goods that cross borders. But it is also a much deeper story about how markets react to sudden, dramatic shifts. Today, we break down the real impact of Trump's tariffs and what they mean for America's economic future. Tariffs are often discussed in political terms, but markets see them differently. To Wall Street, tariffs are not ideology. They are risk, cost, and uncertainty. And when uncertainty rises, markets react, sometimes violently. To understand the shockwaves, we need to start with the basics: how companies respond, how consumers respond. This essay will dissect those reactions. It will use plain language to explain what happened when the levers of trade policy were pulled. Effects on people, effects on corporations, effects on the financial markets that connect them all. The goal is not to argue for or against tariffs. The goal is to illuminate their function and their consequences. One government decision can redirect billions of dollars and subtly nudge prices on countless items you use every day. This powerful economic tool is known as a tariff. At first glance, tariffs seem simple, a tax applied at the border, but their real impact is far more complex, rippling from global shipping lanes right into your wallet. Understanding how they work is crucial, because these policies don't just affect international trade. They shape domestic industries, influence consumer prices, and can even redefine a nation's economic trajectory. So, what exactly is a tariff, and how does it function? At its core, the concept is remarkably straightforward. A tariff is a tax levied on an imported good. Imagine a product is manufactured in one country, let's say China, and then purchased for sale in another, like the United States. As that product crosses the border into the US, the government can choose to add this special tax. This isn't a sales tax paid by the final consumer in a store. It's an import duty collected from the company bringing the goods into the country. The primary purpose of this tax is to make the foreign good more expensive. By artificially inflating the cost of the imported item, the government hopes that domestic consumers and businesses might be more inclined to purchase a similar product made within their own country. The intended outcome is to bolster local industries, protect domestic jobs, and give a competitive edge to national manufacturers who don't have to pay the tariff. For example, the Trump administration deployed tariffs as a central tool of its economic and foreign policy. Significant tariffs were placed on industrial materials like steel and aluminum from a wide range of countries. An even more extensive and escalating series of tariffs were imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods imported from China, affecting everything from electronics to furniture. The stated goals were multifaceted: to protect U.S. manufacturing from what was described as unfair competition, to pressure foreign governments over issues like intellectual property theft, and to reduce bilateral trade imbalances. But as we'll see, the real-world effects of these policies are rarely so clear-cut. When tariffs on steel and aluminum were announced, the immediate effects rippled through the economy, but their impact on specific industries was particularly sharp and clear. The policy acted like a powerful economic lever, instantly creating a new set of winners and losers based on one simple question: did they produce the metal, or did they use it? For some, it was a moment of profound relief and unprecedented opportunity. American steel and aluminum producers, who had long struggled against cheaper foreign competition, suddenly found themselves in a much stronger, more protected position. The 25% tariff on imported steel and 10% on aluminum acted as a formidable barrier, making domestic products significantly more competitive almost overnight. In response, domestic mills ramped up production, restarted idle furnaces that had sat dormant for years, and in some cases, began hiring more workers to meet the anticipated demand. It was a tangible, localized boom. But for every winner celebrating this newfound protection, there was a loser grappling with the consequences. Downstream manufacturers that consume steel and aluminum, in sectors from automotive and aerospace to construction and home appliances, faced a sudden and dramatic spike in their raw material costs. This left them with a difficult, unenviable choice: absorb the higher costs and shrink their already thin profit margins, pass those price increases directly on to consumers, or make painful cuts to jobs and future investment to stay afloat. This is the classic dynamic of protectionism. The benefits are highly visible and concentrated in one area, celebrated on the news. The costs, however, are dispersed across countless other businesses and consumers. Harder to see at first, but they add up. Ultimately, protection for one sector becomes an indirect tax on many others, creating a complex and often negative net effect that ripples through the broader economy in ways that aren't always immediately obvious. Financial markets are creatures of habit. They thrive on predictability and deeply dislike uncertainty. The tariff announcements introduce surprise. Each new tweet, press conference, or policy release sent immediate tremors through the stock market. On days when tariff threats escalated, major indices like the Dow Jones often fell sharply. Exporters and multinationals with complex supply chains lost value quickly. Investors started pricing in political risk. Trade policy had become market policy. There was a flight to safety. Treasury prices rose. Gold climbed. Volatility signaled concern that disputes could slow earnings and growth. Investors had to become amateur political scientists, constantly monitoring trade negotiations and predicting the next move from Washington and Beijing. Firms built new models for sudden supply disruptions and overnight tariffs. The uncertainty itself became a wet blanket on investment and growth. While tariffs are levied on goods as they enter a country, their financial impact rarely stops at the border. Think of it as the first ripple in a pond. This initial cost, paid by the importer, sets off a chain reaction that travels deep into the domestic economy, touching businesses and consumers far from the port. The cost is often passed down the supply chain, moving from one entity to the next. Each business, from the shipping company to the distributor, faces a choice: absorb the new expense and reduce their profit margins, or pass it along to the next buyer. In most cases, they pass it on. Importers pay first, then bake the added cost into their wholesale prices. Retailers, facing higher costs from their suppliers, then have little choice but to increase the final price for consumers on the shelf. For American consumers, these tariffs on imports functioned much like a targeted national sales tax, but one that wasn't always visible on the receipt. Prices increased on finished goods like washing machines, but also on their individual component parts, creating a compounding effect. The impact was felt across a wide range of products. Tires, luggage, electronics, and furniture all saw price hikes. For families on tight budgets, these seemingly small increases added up, squeezing their discretionary income. Overall inflation didn't explode, but this steady, quiet, upward creep eroded the purchasing power of every dollar. This matters because higher prices can act as a brake on consumer spending, the primary engine that drives the U.S. economy. When people buy less, businesses earn less, and economic growth can slow. And if that inflationary pressure persists, it can trigger a response from the central bank. The Federal Reserve may raise interest rates to combat rising prices, making it more expensive for businesses to borrow for new factories and for consumers to finance cars and homes. In this way, a protectionist trade policy pushed prices up, prompting a monetary policy response that could cool the entire economy down. Trade is a two-way street. When one country imposes tariffs, affected countries respond in kind. The EU, Canada, Mexico, and China did just that. A one-sided action became a full-blown trade war. U.S. exports got pricier and less competitive abroad. Retaliation hit agriculture. Soybeans, pork, sorghum, and more faced heavy duties. Chinese buyers pivoted to South America. U.S. demand plummeted, prices collapsed. Grain sat unsold. The Farm Belt's pain was acute. Billions in aid provided a lifeline, shifting costs from farmers to taxpayers. Instead of reshoring to the U.S., many firms moved production to other low-cost countries. In many cases, jobs didn't come home. They moved elsewhere. In the face of this new and uncertain trade environment, corporations could not stand still. they were forced to adapt. The most immediate reaction: diversify suppliers across Southeast Asia, Mexico, and Eastern Europe. Another response: invest in automation and robotics to reduce labor exposure entirely. The trend was underway. Tariffs added urgency and capital. Some reshoring happened, but rebuilding a domestic base is expensive and slow. For many, it was faster, cheaper, and less risky to shift to another low-cost country. The winners already had diversified footprints, able to reroute production and sidestep new duties. The era of optimizing purely for cost ended. Resilience became the new imperative. In the end, global flexibility and risk diversification proved more powerful than political promises of protectionism. The tariff experience left a deep and lasting imprint on the way markets and businesses think about the future. Investors now permanently include geopolitical risk in models. The old assumption of steady liberalization is gone. Capital is pricier for globally exposed firms, a political risk premium. Supply chains moved from just-in-time to just-in-case. More inventory, multiple suppliers, better visibility, and higher costs. Trade flows reordered, new hubs grew, and U.S. reliability was questioned as others forged pacts excluding America. Policy reshaped markets, often with unintended consequences, leaving a more guarded global system for years to come. Tariffs are powerful tools, but blunt ones. They can protect industries, but raise prices. They can pressure rivals, but strain allies. And in the end, markets remember one truth: every policy has a price. If you want more clear, unbiased breakdowns of how policy shapes markets and money, like, subscribe, and stay informed.